I had long ago gotten used to this feeling, as if I were living not my own life, but someone else's, a long-running script. Every morning starts the same way, my husband drinking coffee, staring at his phone, me doing the dishes, listening to the refrigerator humming. We don't even fight, we just live side by side, like two old chairs in the corner of a room. It used to be different. It was fun. It was hot. He used to kiss my neck in the morning, whisper something in my ear that made me want to laugh and blush at the same time. Now his lips only touch the rim of the cup, and his words have long since become empty, mechanical. I don't blame him. Maybe he's tired, too. We've just been together so long that we've become part of the home interior, as if we've lost our human shape. We're there, but it's like we're not. I miss it. I miss the lively conversations, the stares that send heat running down your spine. The feeling that makes you not just a wife, but a woman. A real, desirable woman. I'm 57 years old and I don't want to feel invisible. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, I check to see if I'm still there. Those eyes with slight wrinkles in the corners, can they still light up? Those lips, can they whisper something other than the usual, yes, of course, I'll get it right away? I don't know that. Or I didn't. Until the moment the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, the first thing I saw was broad shoulders and a confident look. A man of about 45, maybe a little more, stood on the doorstep with a suitcase of tools in one hand and a slight smile on his lips. Good afternoon. Did you call a plumber? I blinked, as if coming back to reality. Of course I had. The faucet in the bathroom had been dripping for weeks, but I'd been putting it off, like I'd hoped it would fix itself. This morning I decided to call, and here he is. Yeah, sure, come on in. He walked into the apartment smelling something warm, wood or leather, perhaps. It was a strange smell for a plumber, but I liked it. Where's the problem? He asked, looking around. In the bathroom, I replied, stepping back but suddenly feeling awkward. When was the last time I'd experienced something like this? This slight trembling, this desire to smooth my hair, to straighten the folds in my robe, as if I were a young girl hosting a guest again, not a married woman whose faucet had broken. He stepped confidently into the bathroom, and I was left standing in the hallway, feeling something turn over inside. Yeah, it's about 20 minutes of work, no more, his voice came from the bathroom, slightly muffled by the sound of instruments. I went into the kitchen, poured myself some tea, and took a sip, but suddenly I caught myself listening to him move. His shoes squeaking on the tile. The way he whistled softly to himself. You're cozy, he said suddenly, appearing in the doorway. I shuddered. Thank you. He smiled sincerely, genuinely, with a slight sneer. As if he'd seen my confusion and found it amusing. How long have you lived here? I nodded. Almost 20 years. It's beautiful. You can see that it's made with soul. He ran his hand along the wooden frame of the window. You know, I've always thought that a house reflects the character of its owner. I laughed, but something inside sparked strangely. And what does he say about me? He held his gaze for a moment, as if pondering, and then said, that you have a good heart. But maybe it's a little stale. I felt warmth rush to my cheeks. What did he just say? I wanted to answer, but at that moment he smiled again and added, I'll be done soon. And disappeared into the bathroom. I remained standing, clutching the cup in which the tea had already gone cold. I didn't know what was happening to me. But I knew for sure that I hadn't felt anything like this in a very long time. Let's pause for a moment. Write in the comments where you are listening to our stories from, and whether you have had something similar in your life. Maybe you, too, once unexpectedly felt something you haven't felt in a long time. It would be interesting to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new stories. And now we continue. After that day, I couldn't get him out of my head for a long time. His voice, low and husky, echoed in my memory. His gaze, direct and intense, as if he could see right through me. His easy, slightly mocking smile, as if he knew something I didn't. The faucet was long ago fixed, and he still lived in my thoughts. I wasn't looking for a meeting, but I guess somewhere deep inside, waiting for it. And it happened. Completely by accident, at the supermarket. I was picking fruit when suddenly I heard a familiar voice. Pears are good. Sweet. I turned around and saw him. He stood next to me, in a black jacket, with a bag in his hand, and looked at me with that same smile. As if he knew I'd be here. As if this was not an accident, but the continuation of some invisible scenario. Did you check? I grinned, feeling a warm wave surge inside me. Of course. I wouldn't recommend a bad one. He slowly picked up one pear, brought it up to his face, and held his gaze on my lips for a moment. I was thrown into a fever. I was never very good at flirting. At least, not for a long time. But with him, it was as if there was an invisible thread between us, and every look, every word, only made it tighter. Do you always choose so carefully? I raised an eyebrow, as if testing his mettle. He smirked. Only to what's really worthwhile. He looked at me a little longer than usual. A little more carefully than he should have. I don't remember what I answered. I don't remember how we moved on to talking about the weather, about the city, about some small things. I just remember laughing. And I remember that when we broke up, I couldn't stop smiling. After that meeting, something changed. I began to catch myself looking in the mirror more often, choosing my clothes a little more carefully. For the first time in a long time, I put on lipstick for no reason at all. And I saw him again. It was as if fate itself was pushing us towards each other. First at the cafe. Then outside the house. Then again at the store. And every time it was the same exchange of glances. The same light, weightless words that actually meant a lot more than they should have. And then, "You live around here, don't you?" he asked me one day when he met me at my front door. I blanched, but nodded. So we'll see each other more often. And he walked away, leaving me standing with a heart that was beating too fast. I knew where this was going. I realized I was playing with fire. But it's been so long since I've been wondering. I haven't felt like a woman in so long. And I couldn't stop. I told myself it was just a game. Just a delicious new secret that warms me from the inside out. After all, is there anything wrong with that? After all, I'm 57, I'm not a girl, I'm a grown woman who's had ups, downs, years of marriage and habits that have become second skin. Am I not allowed to play a little? Feel alive? But with each meeting, things got more complicated. The plumber, this confident, calm, slightly mocking man, did nothing too much. But there was more in his gaze than in the thousands of words my husband had ever said to me. He didn't ask direct questions, didn't rush me, didn't hint. But when we happened to bump into each other, I could feel something growing between us. Invisible, but palpable, like an electrical charge before a thunderstorm. One day, when my husband left on a business trip, I stayed late at a cafe I frequented. And there he was. Again this strange coincidence, which no longer seemed like a coincidence. "Let me buy you some coffee," he said, taking a seat across from me as if it were so natural. I started, but stopped talking. I had to say no. I knew it was the right thing to do. But I didn't want to. "Okay," I said, as if giving up on myself. We talked. At first, lightly, casually. About movies, favorite places in the city, things that made us laugh. I laughed, feeling a long-forgotten lightness spill over my body, as if it were awakening a part of me that I'd thought was long asleep. And then he suddenly said, "Can I confess to one thing?" I nodded, catching my breath. "I knew I'd meet you here." I froze. "How?" He smiled, leaning back against the table. "Because I enjoy meeting you too much." It was as if the world around him had shrunk. All that was left was him, his voice, his gaze, the one that gave me goosebumps. I stared at him, and I wanted to say 1,000 things, but my lips wouldn't listen. Then he leaned a little closer. If I say I want to see you in a different setting, in a different place, will you run away? I didn't answer right away. But I didn't run away. It was the night I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I stood in front of the mirror, picking out a dress. I was excited. Going through jewelry, touching my hair, checking my lipstick. I wasn't going on a date. But this was it. When he met me, I felt his gaze run over me with a faint smile. "It's a beautiful choice," he said, as if he wasn't talking about my dress, but about something else. We took our time. We dined slowly, talking about something that didn't matter anymore. All the words were just background. What mattered was the way he looked at me. How his hand accidentally touched mine and I didn't pull it away. The way the air between us grew thick, tense. When we got outside, he didn't offer to walk me home. He just stood there, staring at me in a way that made me dizzy. "If I asked you to stay with me a little longer, would you say no?" he asked, keeping his hands in his pockets, not taking his eyes away. He asked, keeping his hands in his pockets, not taking his eyes off me. I didn't say no. I knew what I was doing. I knew I was out of line. But in that moment, it didn't matter. I was alive again. The morning was quiet, too quiet. I sat in the kitchen, palms clasped around a cup of cold coffee, staring out the window. My head was buzzing. Last night had been like a dream, hot, intoxicating, forbidden. I shouldn't have done it, but I did. I shouldn't have wanted it, but I did. But now I'm here again. In this apartment, where everything is painfully familiar. Where every corner remembers me and my husband, all the years we've lived together. Where I know how he drinks his morning tea, what words he'll say when he comes home. Stability. Comfort. Habit. But now it felt like the walls were crushing me. I thought I'd wake up and everything would be clear. That the morning light would wash away the remnants of last night's shivers on my skin, the feelings I shouldn't be feeling. But nothing had changed. I remembered him. The plumber. The man who broke my armor with one look, one word, one touch. He made no promises, asked no questions. He just was. Like the wind, like a sudden storm. And my husband. My husband was my home. But when home becomes too familiar, you stop noticing it. I flinched at the sound of the key in the lock. My husband had returned. "Hi," he said, dropping his bag and kissing me on the cheek. Familiar. Ordinary. I looked at him, trying to find the same affection, the warm feeling that had once enveloped me around him. It was there, but it wasn't the same. "How was your trip?" I asked, hoping my voice didn't waver. "As always. Tired. I want tea." I put the kettle on, trying not to think about the different words I'd been told a few hours ago. Different words. "You're kind of weird," he said suddenly, looking at me closely. I shuddered. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. It's like I'm thinking about something." I clenched my hands so I wouldn't give myself away. "I'm just tired." He nodded, not realizing there was a whole hurricane lurking behind that tired. Did I love him? Yes. But did I love only him? I felt something for another man. Yes. And the feeling was too vivid to deny. I tried to answer myself the big question, who would I choose? But there was no answer. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. I wanted to turn back the clock, to stop earlier, to stop myself from crossing the line. But there was no changing that. I took a step to a place from which there is no turning back. I sat between the past and the future. But which one to take with me to the present, I didn't know. Write in the comments what you think about this story. How would you act in the heroine's place? Have you had similar cases in your life? Your opinion is very important to us, because each of your stories makes our stories deeper and closer to reality. We appreciate each of you and thank you for your support. Don't forget to subscribe and put a like so you don't miss out on new exciting stories. There are many more to come. Write the phrase, "choices are always difficult," in the comments so we know you're listening to the end. Have a good day and see you in the next story.